מסכת חולין פרק ראשון. Today we are going to study page 17. We'll start with 16b, 14 lines from the bottom of the page. Since we're dealing with the law of Shechita and kashrut, the law of slaughtering animals applies to all type, such as, how about birds? Do they require process of slaughtering the same as regular animals? If a person just wants to eat meat, is any restriction, especially if meat originally, we explained many times, wasn't permitted only by force of circumstance? So just eating bsar chulin, meat that it's not sacred, if it's not offering, it's not so simple. The Mishnah tells us, we learned it yesterday, hakol shochatin uleolam shochatin. Simply speaking, all are slaughter and always slaughter. Hakol shochatim, the Gemara asks. Hakol b'shchita va'afilu off. Meaning, everything needs to have a proper process of slaughtering. The whole stages we explained in the past several days. That included bird, included a fall, included any type of off. And that, the Mepharshim said, is a stringency, it's a chumrah. Now the Gemara continued to elaborate on this Mishnah statement and said, Le'olam shochatin man tana. Who is the one who teaches this? So the derivative of Rabba, Rabbi Ishmael he. So this is, follow the statement that Mishnah, according to Rabbah, that follow the view of Rabbi Ishmael, which Rashi said it's a chidush, is novelty, the Tanya. The Torah tells us in the book of Deuteronomy, Dvarim, chapter 12, verse 20, Ki archiv Hashem Elokecha et gvulcha kasher diber lach. The Almighty promise you enter the Holy Land of Israel. God's going to expand your estate, and then you reach a time that you want to eat meat. Ve'amarta ochla basar. I just wish to eat meat, and they use the term bechol ki ta'aveh nafshecha. The word ta'aveh meaning if you avat nafshecha, you want to eat it not as something that you brought as an offering to Beit HaMikdash, and if it's not a burnt offering, you partake of that offering. But you just want pure meat. Eating meat is that called by the Torah terms bsar ta'ava. You have the desire to eat meat. So they said, Rabbi Ishmael Omer, Rabbi Ishmael come and teach us, it's not just a simple Torah statement, obviously, but it's come to teach us, Lo ba katuv ela lehatir lahem bsar ta'ava. In advance, they give them a permission when soon you will, children of Israel in a desert, when you're soon going to enter the Holy Land of Israel, so therefore you can go ahead and eat meat for your appetite. Why? Because when they build the tabernacle, she'ikimu hamishkan, shebatchila, when they are in the wilderness, ne'esar lahem bsar ta'ava. The whole idea of eating meat for aptitude, or nowadays for protein, right? So was forbidden to them. They need to do it only if Rashi said for l'shlamim, for peace offering. However, mishenichnesu la'aretz, when they distance themselves from the altar, those who not feel close to the temporary altar, like Giv'on, like Nov, Shiloh, and other places that they have in a proximity a altar, but live far away, hutar lahem b'sar ta'ava. So by force of circumstance, later, when they already entered the land of Israel, meat for appetite became permitted to them to eat. So again, originally, it was only when you bring it an offering. And only later it's extended to eat it just for appetite. ועכשיו שגלו, and by force of circumstance, as long as we are temporarily at this point in exile, and we do not have temporarily the dwelling of the Holy Temple and the full nation in our Holy Land of Israel, so even it's all temporarily, and we believe that one day it will happen, so now יכול יחזרו לאיסורן הראשון. One may thought that because originally speaking, prior to the time that they entered to the land of Israel, what we said, when they are in the desert, traveling, they're meandering in the desert, it was only while you're bringing an offering that you can eat, partake of that as a meat for appetite. And only later on when they enter, they allow the meat for appetite. So now when the temple unfortunately destroyed the second one, so you may think that we should go backward to the way it was prior to the temple. Lechach shaninu, so therefore the Mishnah comes and teaches for this reason, le'olam shochatin. Even after we have been exiled, we are still allowed to slaughter and eat meat for our appetite. Now, it's a side note, not every rabbi eats meat, and it's not a must. Famous story about Rav Kook and others. But anyway, Matkif la Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef have a big objection to this, and he said, "Hi, this halakha that Mishnah come and teach us, le'olam shochatim, even you mean to say, even after that we're in exile?" So he said, we always slaughter. What should I say? He said, "Le'olam shochatim ve'ochlim mibayale," which means that it's not just ilchot achilat basar, the law of eating meat, but the main idea is that we always slaughter and eat, meaning that we have halacha in law of slaughtering, in l'chot shechita, and moreover, ve'od. How you tell me nowadays you go back to the way that was prior to the temple? Me'ikara, when our ancestors, the Israelites, were wandering in the wilderness, my ta'ama itasar, the reason that meat just for appetite were forbidden, we have derivative from the verse that said, Mishum dahavu mikarvei la mishkan, because they bring the offering to the altar, which is in a proximity. And Rashi explains that the blood, the fat, they put in the altar, and the meat they can consume, they can eat it, was permitted. Ulvasof, and later on, when the circumstance changed and they entered the Holy Land of Israel, Maitama Ishteru, so when the Jewish people entered the land, what was the reason that meat for appetite became permitted to them? Dahavu merachkei mimishkan, because they will now be in such a circumstance that many of the people who dwell in the different places of the tribes was in the far proximity of the temporarily temple. People who live close to Shiloh, Nov, Givon, and other places are close, versus people who are in distance, or later on when they established the temple in Jerusalem. So people live far away and not always are capable to travel with their donkey or whatever it is to the temple in order to slaughter animal for their offering. So therefore, since they be impartial to offer all animal slaughter as offering, page 17, V'chol sheken hashta, and for sure now, after unfortunately the Jewish people forced out of the land and they are in an exile, so now meat for a person's appetite should surely be permitted. Why the archiku lehu tfei? Because they are even more in distance from the holy Beit HaMikdash, so they cannot bring an offering. So obviously we should much so be strong in the idea that b'sar ta'ava, that meat for appetite, should be permitted. That's the way Rashash and Ran understand from our Tosfot. I just want to comment something that is written both in a book called Melo HaRo'im, Ot Ein, from the great Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Barditchever, and you see it also in Birkei Yosef in Yoredea, Siman Yud Gimel, Sif Katan Bet. He brought from a book called Kotnot Or. Kotnot Or is a book that's written by the Panim Meirot. He says that, and I'm just reading the word by word, the Kevan de B'sha'ah she'Yisrael yayu b'midbar, when the Jewish people, the Israelites, were wandering in the desert, lo hutzrechu lishchot ha'behemot. They do not have that necessity to slaughter the animal. אם כן יוצא מזה שאז הייתה השחיטה שבקורבנות על ידי הכהנים דווקא. It means that at that time when the Jewish people wandered the desert, the slaughtering of animal was solely by the priest, by the Kohanim. The Rea Tosfot, you see it in Tosfot in several places in the Shas, that said, the Shechita lav avoda, mishum the Shechita noget gam bechulin, because the slaughtering applies also to animals who are not sacred. So it means during the time that the Jewish people wander in the desert, that lo nahaga shchita bechulin, so therefore mimela hayta shchita avoda. Anyway, so the Gemara said that Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef said what the Mishnah meant when they used the term le'olam shochatim. That's followed the view of Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva, as we know, he disputed Rabbi Ishmael, and he held as follows. The Tanya will go back the same verse, the same pasuk in Devarim chapter 12, verse 21. Just the following. כי ירחק ממך המקום אשר יבחר השם אלוקיך לשום שמו שם. When you are in a situation that the place that the Almighty God would chose, it's in distance from your place, וזבחת מבקרך ומצונך. So therefore you should slaughter from your cattle and your flocks. So that's after Rabbi Ishmael brought his pasuk, and now when they're distance from the Beit HaMikdash, so it's here written here, Ka'asher tziviticha, which is follow the law of Shechita. So Rabbi Akiva said, Rabbi Akiva אומר, לא בא כתוב, אלא לאסור להם בשר נחירה. So the pasuk, the verse come to only to forbid to the Jewish people the consumption of the meat, an animal that was killed by piercing its pipes rather than the proper manner of slaughtering. So if you remember, we studied in Bava Kama, page 78, that nechira, which means he used from the nostrils, he cut it up to the chest. Here, Rashi said that it's not the derech shchita, chituch simanim not derech shchita. Anyway, so there's a few ways to understand it, but anyway, shebetchila, originally when they are in the desert, the Jewish people, hutar lahem b'sar nechira, the meat of an animal killed by piercing was permitted for them. However, mishenichnesu la'aretz, when they are commanded of the proper way of slaughtering animal, and they enter the holy land of Israel, ne'esar lahem b'sar nechira. So the animal that killed by piercing become forbidden to them. So basically, Rabbi Akiva goes the opposite understanding of the psukim than Rabbi Ishmael. According to Rabbi Ishmael, the Torah allow b'sar ta'ava, a meat that people want for their appetite. Rabbi Akiva said it's prohibited b'sar nechira when they enter the land. So now later the Gemara expand on that. But anyway, Rav Yosef concludes, ועכשיו, and under this circumstance, שגלו, that unfortunately the Jewish people are forced out of the land and they've been exiled. So therefore, he said, יכול יחזרו ליתרן הראשון. So therefore, you might have thought that they will return to their original permitted situation, which means that they will now be permitted to eat the meat of a pierced animal, the way that they have prior to entering the land. So therefore, לכך שנינו, so that's the reason we learn in the Mishnah, לעולם שוחטים. Even after we have been exiled, we are still required to slaughter our meat, just as we occupied at the time that we have the full control of our land of Israel. So now, after the Gemara brought the views of Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Akiva, the way that they interpreted the psukim, now the Gemara occupied with explanation of that disputation. B'mai kamiflige, what exactly Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Akiva disagree? What's the reason, what's the rationale, the logical idea beyond their disputation? By the way, there's a Maharam Shik that beautifully explained the sugya. Anyway, Rabbi Akiva savar, b'sar ta'ava lo itzar klal. Rabbi Akiva hold that meat for the appetite was never forbidden at all. Even when the Jewish people were in the wilderness, they were permitted to eat meat for non-sacrificial purposes. However, Rabbi Yishmael Savar, Rabbi Ishmael hold, no, Besar Nechira lo ishterei klal. Rabbi Ishmael hold that animal that was killed by piercing was never permitted. Even the time the Jewish people were in the desert, they're required to slaughter whatever meats they will eat. So therefore you cannot say that there's a verse come to forbids b'sar nechira, a pierced meat, upon when they enter the land. Meaning Rabbi Ishmael hold that even the time that they are wilderness, the Jewish people are commanded to do the proper shechita prior to their eating the food, and therefore you cannot say that all of a sudden it's institute the prohibition against eating piercing meat when they enter the land. There is a book called Chosen Yeshuot and Lev Aryeh that expand on that. But anyway, so the Gemara tried to bring a source from the psukim for each view. Rabbi Ishmael on one side and Rabbi Akiva from the others. Bishlama le Rabbi Ishmael. Hainu dechtiv. If we match another sentence in the Torah, we understand Rabbi Ishmael's view, and that sentence is written in the book of Leviticus, chapter 1, verse 5. The pasuk said, "Veshachat et ben abakar." So this pasuk speaks about the burn offering, korban olah. So therefore, they talk about offering that was in a tent of meeting while they are in the wilderness, and we understand Rashi said that even when they are in the wilderness, they are commanded to do the proper process of slaughtering. So therefore, it means, follow Rabbi Ishmael, that even when they are in the wilderness, they are commanded to do the proper shechita. Ela le Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Akiva, that what did he say? That during the time that they are in the wilderness, that you are not commanded to do the proper shechita, and therefore, how do you explain my veshachat? How Rabbi Akiva explained the words, the statement, if Rabbi Akiva maintained that in the wilderness animals doesn't need to have been slaughtered, what is mean of the word, and he shall slaughter? So here he explained, Rabbi Akiva explained, or Gemara explained, according to the view of Rabbi Akiva, Kodashim Shane. When you have a consecrated animal, is treated differently. Even the wilderness, they require shechita, because they are b'sar kodashim. And what Rabbi Akiva said, that during the time that they are in the wilderness, the children of Israel are not required to do shechita, that's applied to behemot chulin, to animals that are not sacred. Another proof to the view of Rabbi Ishmael, Bishlama le Rabbi Ishmael, Hainu dechtiv, if you follow the view of Rabbi Ishmael, now you understand clearly the pasuk that's written in the book of Bamidbar, book of Numbers, chapter 11, verse 22. The pasuk said, Hatzon vehabakar yishachet lahem. So at that time, the people complained over the manna that came from heaven to sustain the people, and people still complain, and they said they want meat, and the Almighty was angry at them, and He said that you get so much meat until you be fed up and sick of that. And so Moses asked God how that can be, that you have 600,000 men only, how you provide meat for all of them, and the Hatzon uvakar yishachet lahem umatzam lahem. So it means, in the language of Moshe Rabbeinu, since he used the term yishachet, Hatzon uvakar yishachet, which means that even in the time of the wilderness, they have the commandment of Shechita, of slaughtering. So the Gemara said, that's matched the view of Rabbi Ishmael. So it consists with Rabbi Ishmael's view that slaughter was required at that time. However, Ela le Rabbi Akiva, that he said that it wasn't any obligatory rules to slaughter according to Jewish law while the children of Israel were wandering in the desert. So he said, "My hatzon uvakar yishachet lahem." What is the meaning of these words? Should flocks and herds be slaughtered for them? So the Gemara said, "Yinacher lahem ibaile." The pasuk said that the flock and herd should pierce for them. So therefore, "Yinacher lahem ibailem," nichra shelahem zoi shchitatan. So the Gemara explained that since at that time the meat of piercing animals were permitting, their piercing was the same as to their shchita, which means that it has to be properly, and since the time of the wilderness they can allow meat to eat even by nechira, so the shchuta, it wasn't limited only for the real process of shchita, but expand even more to anything that people kill animal for the sake of give a very basic sustenance, or nowadays protein, to their body. The Gemara asked further on Rabbi Akiva, Bishlama le Rabbi Ishmael hainu detnan. We understand according to Rabbi Ishmael what we going to study on page 85. Hashochet v'nitnabla beyado v'hanocher v'hame'aker patur milchasot. We learned there that if one slaughtered an animal and all of a sudden its carcass, it's a nevela through his hand, it can be in all different situations. Rashi explained that obviously it wasn't intentional, so the whole idea of the meat turned to be nevela, it's because it wasn't intentional, the same as a regular animal that wasn't slaughtered properly, such as use a defect knife, or if it was poses, shehiyah, drisa, anything that me'akev shchita. And the same apply hanocher, one who pierced through its pipes or tore out its pipes. So he is exempt from covering the animal's blood. As you know, the Torah tells us in Leviticus chapter 17, verse 13, ואיש איש אשר יצוד צד חיה או עוף אשר יאכל ושפך את דמו בכיסה או באפר. So in Hashem on page 85 we learn that there is a biblical obligation to cover the blood with earth. So we said that applies solely to animal, domesticated animal or fowl that slaughter according to Jewish law, and that's the Mishnah tells us if doing the process of shchita, of slaughtering, turns to be invalid, we do not have the obligation, the mitzvah, of covering the blood, of kisui hadam. So the reason is, as we said, it's only because the shchita, this requirements applies when the shechita, the process of slaughtering, was made according to halakha, the Torah, the Jewish law. So therefore, if it wasn't proper, he's exempt from that. According to Rabbi Ishmael, we understand clearly why the Mishnah put nechira, the piercing, within those list of items that can cause the shechita, the slaughter, to be unfitting, invalid, which is this one, Ela le Rabbi Akiva. However, according to Rabbi Akiva, Amai patur milchasot, why the person exempt from covering the blood when is a piercing? The mitzvah of covering the blood happened to be commanded while the Jewish people were in the desert. At that time, they allowed to have nechira, the piercing. So therefore, later in time, in our days, so in the case of piercing, we should require, if it's nechira, kisui, to cover the blood. So the Gemara said, Lo ho'il ve'itza. Rabbi Akiva explained, he will explain in that sense, will explain that since once piercing become forbidden as a method of slaughter, it indeed became forbidden. Meaning, the moment you have this piercing lost its status as a valid method of slaughter, which is upon the Jewish people entering the land, so it no longer needs to cover the blood of pierced animal. So therefore, what our Mishnah is basically telling us, what is the present day law. Now the Gemara tried to bring a re'aya, a proof to a view of Rabbi Akiva from the Psukim. Rabbi Akiva de'amar b'sar ta'ava lo yitesar klal. If you go by the Rabbi Akiva that said that meat that was asked for appetite, the Torah did not prohibit it at all. Hainu dechtiv, that's what we understand the previous machloket to mention, based on the pasuk in Dvarim chapter 12 verse 22. Ach ka'asher ye'achel et hatzvi et ha'ayal ken yochlenu. The pasuk said, even as a deer and the heart are eaten, so may you eat it. So here you have a very clear understanding that when the Jewish people enter the Holy Land of Israel, they allow to eat in a state of ritual impurity under those circumstances that type of batzar vatzon, the same way as they ate the tzvi ve'ayal, the deer, etc. So therefore, it means that while the Jewish people wandering the desert, they allowed to eat deer and ayal, that those animals are not befitting as offering, and that's matched the view of Rabbi Akiva, that they say that while the Jewish people wander in the wilderness, they are not forbidden to eat b'sar tava, to eat meat of for the purpose of appetite. However, ela le Rabbi Ishmael. However, if you follow the view of Rabbi Ishmael, that said that b'sar tava, the meat for appetite, were forbidden for the Israelite while they are in a wilderness, so therefore, how he explained this statement that the Jewish people are allowed to eat batzar tzon, the same as tzvi ve'ayal. Tzvi ve'ayal gufei, deer or heart themselves, mi havei sharye, even permitted while the Jewish people are in this, the way that we understand the pasuk, because the way that we understand it, they are not, they are forbidden. So the Gemara explained, according to Rabbi Ishmael, ki asara chamana, when the Torah forbidden b'sar ta'ava b'midbar, the meat for appetite, while the Jewish people wander in the desert, that applies specifically behema, the chazia la'akrava, that's applied to animals which are fit to be offered upon the altar. Aval chaya de lo chazia, however, undomesticated animals such as deer or a hart, which are not fit to be offered upon the altar, the Torah did not forbid at all, and therefore the pasuk is consistent even with Rabbi Ishmael's position. So it means that according to Rabbi Akiva, we understand when the Jewish people wander in the wilderness, they are allowed to eat b'sar chulin, meat of non-sacred, that made by piercing, and only when they enter the Holy Land of Israel they are prohibited to do it. So now Gemara bring a challenge to that by Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah inquire, אברי בשר נחירה שהכניסו ישראל עמהן לארץ, those pieces of meat that are piercing, that the Israelites brought with them as they crossed from the wilderness into the Holy Land of Israel. הכניסו ישראל עמהן לארץ. מהו? Did they allow to eat them when they entered the land or not? So Rashi said that that's not lemaise, that's not nowadays. But we need to know drosh vekabel sachar, why what's the rule there? So they said, Eimat ilema besheva shekavshu, if you talk about those 7 years when the Jewish people conquered the land of Israel, ki ishtaru lei shalal ovdei kochavim, shal ovdei kochavim, didu lo ishterei. So what they are permitted at that time is they allow אילמה בשבע שנים שכבשו את הארץ, אשתה אפילו טמא ישתרו לו, I'm sorry, skip it. So even something that were tameh, that ritually impure, non-kosher animal, were permitted to Jewish people during that period. Dichtiv, because the pasuk said in Dvarim chapter 6, ובתים מלאים כל טוב, אמר רבי ירמיה בר אבא, אמר רב קטלי דחזירי בשר נחירה מבעיה, they allow even the bacon permitted when they conquered the land. So any question when it's come to b'sar nechira, to the meat of kosher animal while they killed through piercing, was also permitted to them. Ela, it's the issue, ela leachar mikan, when they complete the conquering the land, and now they are forbidden to something that is ritually impure. Another option, you can say, v'baitem al olam b'sheva, the 7 years shekavshu, those years, 7 years that they conquered the land. כי ישתרו לי שלל של עובדי כוכבים, what they allowed them was the spoil capture from the idolaters that became permitted. Didhu lo ishterei, their own non-kosher food, however, did not become permitted any more than it had been previously. And the Gemara, since it answered, they say teiku. Tishbi yetaretz kushiyot ve'abayot ve'Rabbi Yirmiyah inquiry remain unresolved. Amar Rava, some say Rabba, שנית, הכל שוחטים ולעולם שוחטים, בכל שוחטים. So far we explained, but how you explain the less this statement, we slaughter with anything. מה משנת לה? וכי תימה אין בצור, בין בצור, בין בזכוכית, בין מקומית שקנה. If you tell me that supply all those we mentioned in the previous daf, which is in the Mishnah, the flea, the glass, the reed, הדום ידע אנח קטני. So the two principle applies to others. So this all should be under one category. אי הנח בשוחטין, אינם בשוחטין, ואי הנח בנשחטין, אינם בנשחטין. אמרה והכל שוחטין, חדה לעטויי קוטי. One, it's come to teach us the kutai, that, v'chada la'atuyei Yisrael mumar, and wants to include a renegade Jew. And לעולם שוחטים בין ביום ובין בלילה, meaning regardless, day or night, בין בראש הגג, בין בראש הספינה, regardless if it's the top of the roof or top of the boat. All these cases one may quote-unquote always slaughter. And the third principle, בכל שוחטין, בין בצור, בין בזכוכית, בין בקרומים של קנה. Flint, glass, or reed. So the Mishnah is consistent for all the three of its statements deal with people or things performing the act of slaughter. חוץ ממעגל קציר והמגירה והשיניים והציפורן מפני שהם חונקים. So except with the harvesting sickle, the saw, etc., because they are toward the sign. Avua de Shmuel pagam. So it happened that the father of Shmuel made various notches in the knife and said it to the sages of Israel. He needs to know if what disqualification for this knife for Shechita. פגם ושדר. פגם ושדר שלחו לי, כמגרה שנינו. So they sent him, and they said, we have been taught in the Mishnah that notices disqualified when they are like those of a saw. So now we talk about defect in the knife. They said, Tanu Rabbanan, our sages taught in the Braita, page Yudzayin 17b, סכין שיש בה פגימות הרבה, תידון כמגירה. When you have a knife that carries many notches, so we should treat it as a saw, which means, Rashi explained, that is psula, that it's not valid for Shechita. ושאין בה אלא פגימה אחת. However, when you have a situation, the knife carries only one single notch, so then it's a question. Ogeret psula. So if you have in the knife a gados, a fingernail passing over it, so it's not valid. Mesuchsechet, it entangles the fingernail, then it's okay, and the Gemara expand on that. Heichedam yaogeret, heichedam mesachsechet. Explain to me these two concepts of gather and entangles. Amar Rabbi Elazar or Eliezer, ogeret mishtei ruchot. Gather meaning they have on both sides of it. Mesuchsechet meruach achat. When it's entangles, the way Rashi explained, it's only from one side. So the Gemara asks, Ma'ishna mishte ruchot demosha kama machalish umosha batra baza. What's the real difference about the notch that we talk about? If it's the two sides, that make it invalidate. So he said that the first point undermines the animal hide and underlining flesh, and the second point tear the two important points of Shechita, which are, one is kaneh and one veshet. How you translate it? Kaneh and veshet in English? How you translate kaneh and veshet? So the way they said here is, what is it? Trasha and espogus, something like that. But anyway, that's the two, right? The two that make it here invalidating to a slaughter. Meruach achat namei. But if it's one side, chufa de sakina machalish, the sharpness of the knife undermines the flesh. Mursha baza, the point of the notch that comes and tear the pipes. So the question is, why you have a situation that the knife with a single pointed notch deems valid for Shechita? So the Gemara said, the ka'im areisha de sakina, that the bgima, the invalidation, have at the top, the acme, at the tip of the front of the knife. So if it's elsewhere in any place of the knife, so it will indeed invalidate. So Gemara continue and asks, sof, eventually, in the final analysis point, ki azla, when the knife is extended in one direction, it undermines the flesh. Ki ata, and then it's drawn back, the notch will tear the kanen vesh or the veshet, right? So they said kegon, one the bright allow mesuchsechet, is a situation when they shechet, what did they do? כגון שהוליך ולא הביא. The kosher butcher extended the knife, but he did not draw it back, which is he cut it only in one direction. So we're not concerned that that's gima, that as a tip of the knife cause damage with the siman itself. So in the Hagahot, Lehilchot Shechita, Lemahari, he wrote as follows. Listen to this. Bgima, what is bgima? Begimatria chametz. He says the same way, the כמו שחמץ אוסר במשהו, the same way as the chametz prohibited even משהו, even כן הפגימה במשהו פוסלת את הסכין ושחיטתו פסולה. Meaning given a little bit problem with the knife, that make it invalid. So there is a book called Ta'amei Minagim, Siman Kuf Tedvav. He brings from the early Kabbalistic book that it's called Sefer HaTmuna. In a Sefer HaTmuna he said, why do we need to slaughter specifically in the knife sakin she'eno pagum? So he said, this is a little Kabbalistic, for you especially, says that כי נשמות הצדיקים מגולגלים בבהמה ובעוף. That the neshamas, there is a transmigration of the spark of the righteous, the pious, the tzaddikim, is toward those animals and foals. So then, לכן צריך להיזהר שלא יצערו. Therefore, they have to be careful not to cause sorrow, right, to that neshama. ועל ידי הפגם, נפש המתגלגלת מצטערת. If you carry a פגם, a defect in the knife, so the soul of the righteous deceased cause that soul sorrow. If it wasn't in Kabbalistic book, Sefer HaTmuna, it's hard to understand, but that's what it's written. Anyway, so now Rava put together and summarize the klalei pgimot hasakin, the law of the notches that we discussed prior to that. Amar Rava shalosh midot besakin. There are 3 levels of impressions that can happen in the knife. Here are they. Number 1, that they have okets in both sides. As we learn, it's called ogeret. Gathers, the fingernail passing over it. Lo yishchot, should not use it for shechita. V'im shachat, however, if he did it, shechitato psula. So it makes it invalid. Number 2, mesuchsechet, which means that it's entangles the fingernail. So here is only lechatchila, lo yishchot ba lechatchila. The first place you should not use it. However, ve'im shachat, shechitato kshera. So the Rosh and the Ran explains that it's only if it was in the holacha, putting the sakin, the knife. But the question is, it can happen that unfortunately you can do holacha and ava'ah, and Rashi explained that's make the knife puzzle. So therefore, lechatchila, you should not use it. Or levi yored besakin, and if the impressions go up and down gradually along the edge of the knife, that's even lechatchila. Shochet ba lechatchila, the first way. So the fact that the knife is not straight, that's not a reason. As long as it doesn't have any defect, no pgima, it's fine. Second, now we challenge. אמר לרב ברי דרב נחמיה לרב אשי, אמרת לנו משמי דרבה מסוכסכת פסולה, which means even בדיעבד, even the hindsight. ואמר רבה מסוכסכת כשרה. So how you reconcile the difference between the two? So he said, לא קשיא, כאן כשהוליך והביא, כאן כשהוליך ולא הביא. So you have to differentiate between 2 different situations. One, when he extended the knife and then drew it back, and the other one is when he extended the knife but did not draw it back. Seen in the later case, the knife moved in but a single direction. The enlarging notch does not invalidate the slaughter. אומר לרב אחברי דרב אביה לרב אשי, דמיה לססה מאי, אמר לי, מיין יהיב לן מביסרה ואכלינה. So it means that it's not any problem. אומר רב חיסדא, מניין לבדיקת סכין מן התורה? How do you know that we have the chayva, you have the obligation, the Torah requires us to examine the knife before the Shechita, and it's absolutely mandatory. So the first Jewish king is King Saul. They said in the first book of Shmuel, Samuel, chapter 14, that King Saul said to the people, Ushchatetem bazeh ve'achaltem. So the children of Israel chased the Philistines, and they didn't eat all day. In the evening, when they returned, and they are very jaded and tired, so they took many animals and slaughtered them. So according to Chazal, they dedicate those animals to a peace offering, and they eat the meat before sprinkle of the blood. So so King Saul said, "Ushchatem bazeh va'achaltem," which means that he checked the knife to make sure that they do it right. And King Saul, according to what we understand from Radak and others, make sure that those knives are free from any defects. So the Gemara said, Pshita, obviously, you have to check it. So obviously, it's so, clear that if it's any punctures rather than cuts, so if you have issue, as we explain in the Kaneh and Neveshet, right? So it makes the animal treifa. So ba'ya bdika. So obviously it goes without doubt that the knife requires examination to make sure that it's not any problem. So they said, lechacham kamrinan, which means you have to bring it to someone who's a very erudite sage, that's very familiar, baki, in הלכות שחיטה. ואמר רבי יוחנן, אמרו להראות סכין לחכם למדי כבודו של חכם. Rabbi Yochanan said that you don't need it, עד אחד נאמן באיסורין ולרן, and only because of the honor of Talmid Chacham you do that, otherwise you don't need to. So they said, midrabanan ukra asmachta be'almau. So they said that the truth is that it's a rabbinic origin. And the pasuk we have cited, it's a biblical implication, allusion, and it's not the actual source of the law. B'ma'arava, in Eretz Israel, that is western part of Bavel, badkela b'shimsha, which means they take the knife and check it by the light of the sun, and they make sure that the lahav sakin, that the knife is clear of any defects. Benahardea badkula b'maya. In Nahardea, they examine it with water, which means they put the knife on the water, and they make sure that it's no pgam. Rav Sheshet badakla b'reish lishni. Rav Sheshet check it with the tip of his tongue. Rav Acha bar Yaakov badakla b'chuta sa'ara, which means he brings a strand of hair, and to see if it's get inside. Besura amrei bisra achla bisra levidka. A knife cut flesh, it must be examined. So it means either the tongue or the finger. אמר רב פאפא צריכה בדיקה הביסרה והתופרה והתלת הרוחתה. So Rav Papa hold that the knife need examination on flesh and on the fingernet and on the three sides of the blade. Not everyone goes in that girsa, but that's the way it's said here. Rashi said that maybe something entangles. אמר לרבינה לרב אשי, אמר לן רב סמא ברי דרב משרשי המשמח ואמרת להם משמי דרבה. צריכה בדיקה ביסרה והתופרה והתלת הרוחתה. So he said that the knife need examinations on the flesh, on the fingernail, and all the three sides of the blade. אמר להביסה והתופרה אמרי. I said on flesh and on the fingernail. והתלת הרוחתה לא אמרי. But I did not say anything about examination on three sides. איכא דאמרה ביסרה והתופרה והתלת הרוחתה אמרי. משמי דרבא לא אמרי. רבינה ורב אחא, ברי דרבא, הבוית וקמי דרב אשי, הייתו סכין לקמי דרב אשי לבודקה. So they're bringing a knife to Rav Ashi to check it. אומר לרב אחא ברי דרבא, בידקה, check it. בדקה עטופרא והביסרא ועתתא רוחתא. So he did it. He actually examined the knife on his fingernail, on his flesh, on all the three sides. Omar le, Rav Ashi said to him, Yishar. It's like Yashar Koach. Very good. Well done. V'chen amar Rav Kahana, and Rav Kahana said that that's the way you should, this kind of inspection you have to do. Not everyone goes that way. Rav Yeimar amar atufra v'abisra tzricha, atlat aruchata lo tzricha. He says, Rav Yeimar said that, okay, with fingernail and flesh, that's, I agree that require. However, three sides, you don't require it. So, מילו אמר רב ויזר אמר שמואל ליבן סכין ושחט בה שחיטתו כשרה שחידודה קודם לליבונה. He said if one superheated the knife and then slaughter it, so the slaughter is valid for the knife sharpness precedes its heat. וקשלה נעיק הצדדית, so we have those sides of to the blade. ואמרינן בית השחיטה מרווח רביך, הנחנמי בית השחיטה, the incision spread apart, מרווח רווח. So it means that you don't need to check the side of the knife. אמר רב הונא בר הרב קטינא אמר רבי שמעון בן לקיש, שלוש פגימות הן. So he said that there are three notches that have legal significance, which are פגימת עצם בפסח, so the notch in the bone on the Pesach, Paschal offering, פגימת אוזן בבחור, the notch of the ear of a firstborn, פגימת מום בקודשים. He said also the notch that the blemish in the sacrificial animal. ורב חיסדא אמר, רב חיסדא said, אף פגימת סכין, is also notch of a knife used for shechita. ואידך, בחולין לא כמיירי. So he said, and the other Amora, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, was not discussing mandate manner, such as knives that use for the slaughter of something that is chulin, which is unconsecrated animal. So he was discussing only thing related specifically to the offering. And now the Gemara resume and continue and explain what is the shi'ur pgima meshutaf, the common standards used to evaluate each of these notches. It said all v'chulan, all those issues of pgima, pgimatan kedei pgimat hamizbeach, the size of the notch must be equal to that of the notch which will disqualify the mizbeach, the altar. So there is a Tosfot and the Ritva that expand on that. So the Gemara asks, page 18, V'chama pgimat hamizbeach, what is the size of the notch that will disqualify the altar? So the Gemara explained and it said, Kedei shetachgor ba atzipore. The notch was large enough that a fingernail passing over the area will be stopped by it. It's a question that many Rishonim ask, so why you need to check the knife with the sun, with the water, with the tongue? It's enough to check it in a fingernail. It's a Ritva and the Rosh and others that deal with this. But anyway, Meitivei kama pgimat hamizbeach. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai omer tefach, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov omer kezait. So the question is, what is the size of a notch that will disqualify the altar? So Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said a handbreadth. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said kezait, like an olive bar. So both of these measures are certainly larger than the area that will catch a fingernail. So Gemara said, Lo kasha, it's not an issue. Ha besida, ha be'avna. One braita dealing with a notch in the lime of the altar, and the other braita dealing with what? With a notch in the stone of the altar. That's the stones that the altar was built. And if you remember, we studied both in Zvachim, page 54, and also in the Mishnah in Midot, chapter 3, Mishnah 4, the whole idea of the avanim shleimot, that those stones, it's based on the pasuk in the Varim, chapter 27, verse 4.